Get ready for an unforgettable journey through Italy in our latest episode where we condense 20 of our podcast episodes into one epic highlight show. We'll be taking you on an 8-week escapade through the enchanting landscapes and history of Venice, Trieste, Milan, Lake Como, Cinque Terre, Florence, Tuscany, Rome, Naples, Pompeii, Sorrento, and Amalfi. Discover the must-see sights, hidden gems, and exciting activities that made our trip truly unforgettable. We'll be telling you about our top tour recommendations, share some offbeat and fun experiences, some really great accommodation recommendations, and let you in on the hottest bars we stumbled upon in Florence and Rome. But wait, there's more. We'll even reveal our favourite destinations and even one surprising disappointment that caught us a bit off guard. Our Italian podcast is just got so much information. So if you know anyone in your family or friends that might be traveling to Italy soon, make sure you share the link with them. It's beachtravelwine.com/Italy. Now, just stick around to the end because we share some of our best tips, on what money to, when you need to have cash, all that sort of stuff, what not to wear, what to pack, and also navigating the Italian train system. So sit back, relax, or continue doing whatever you're doing and enjoy episode 73. Cheers! And welcome to the Beach Travel Wine Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Leanne.
And I'm Lyle, and this is the travel podcast for beach-loving, wine-drinking couples over 50.
So if that sounds like you, grab yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and listen as we go travelling the world, one wine at a time.
Cheers.
Buongiorno, Lyle, for the last time.
Buongiorno, Leonita.
Oh, you sound sad.
A little.
This is episode 73, and it's a little bit different this episode. We had 8 weeks in Italy, and we've done over 20 podcasts on Italy. So if you want to know all about those, you know where to look, beachtravelwine.com/Italy. But interesting, when we come back from these ventures, we get asked lots of questions like, what was your favourite thing to do in Venice, or, which was your favourite city, and what should I know before I go, or which cities should I not go to, and, what would you recommend we do in Florence? All those, don't we? Like, people just want to know, they always want to know those favourite things that we do. So what we've done is we have gone back and we've summarised all the cities we've been to, and we've picked out some of the highlights and a couple of things that maybe to miss, but also we're going to do some generalised, pretty helpful hints at the end as well, yeah?
Sure.
So without further ado, my handsome husband, let's get started. And where we started was...
Well, you've started off right.
Handsome husband.
See.
Where we started was in Venice. Now, I have to say, flying into Venice, this is my first time in Italy, so actually arriving in Venice was absolutely incredible. Like just getting off the plane and going to that water taxi and going through the canals, like I would have been happy with that, and then we arrived at our beautiful hotel on the Grand Canal. But I probably think, let me start because I'm the boss, and then you can jump in anytime you like. Venice, obviously you need to do a gondola tour on the canals, yes?
Sure.
And we were lucky that there was a station right outside our hotel, and we did an amazing, half-hour, 40-minute gondola ride, which I thought was fabulous. Also, St. Mark's Square and Basilica. That's sort of where we headed first, wasn't it, for a bit of a walk up over through the little alleyways and over the bridges and over the canals and things. Even just wandering through Venice is pretty special. And probably one of my favourites was the Doge's Palace.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think you've got to do a tour of the Doge Palace and also San Marcos. Yeah, I think that's a must. And I think the other thing that I've really, really enjoyed was the Cinque tour.
Oh, yeah, the food tour.
And that was called the Venice Like a Local. Mm-hmm. And look, none of the tours are cheap in Venice, but they were all fabulous. And the other thing about Venice is make sure you've got cash, because most of the services do ask for cash.
The gondola, for instance.
Yeah. For instance, yeah.
So Our episodes 52 and 53 cover everything that we did in Venice, and there's all the links to those episodes there. Have you got anything else before we move on?
I think there was a couple of funny things that came out when we to do the tour. One was how the aristocratic women dyed their hair blonde in horse urine because they, at that time, the culture was that blonde hair was
beautiful,
more beautiful than dark hair.
Yeah,
and
correct.
The other thing was the lion-headed post boxes in the doge for the secret police.
The secret little police,
yeah. So you could dob in your neighbour.
For doing something wrong.
Be
careful, because you might end up in the
because
in the
if
jail.
they find out that it's a vexatious claim,
you're in trouble.
So I thought that was good. And the other thing is the one thing I probably disappointed me was your rain booties that you bought.
Okay, so go and check out episodes 52 and 53, the show notes for those, and you'll see a picture of my booties. Although I've seen lots of pictures of St. Mark's Square where there's water in it, and you can see why they sell those booties now.
Oh, sure.
Because they come up to your knees.
Yeah.
But I love them, yes. Good on you. And I was going to say, don't have a drink on the canal because it's so expensive, but you got to do it,
Sure. Well, the restaurants around.
Sure.
Yeah. But the canal is fabulous.
Yeah, it was really, really great spot. So after Venice, we headed to Trieste. Now that's, not as well known as others, and it's up more towards the Slovenian, Austrian.
Yeah, it's the northernmost part of Italy.
Yeah, so we went there because we did some research, and it just looked like it was a beautiful city. And probably my favourite thing was obviously visiting the Miramare Castle with its beautiful gardens, and that was the castle of a Grand Duke, wasn't it?
Yes, Austrian Archduke Fernando Maximilian. And
he did lots of exploring as well, and was right into flora and fauna, and they had lots of artwork on display of his. But the gardens there were wonderful, weren't they?
Yeah,
it was just beautiful picture postcard.
Probably the thing that was unique about that, and both Leanne and I really enjoyed, was that they still had the furniture from that day. Yeah, it was the actual castle was furnished exactly as it was at the end.
Yes.
Unfortunately, old Maximilian, he got murdered in Mexico.
He did, and he had lots of Mexican, like symbols all around, in the curtains and decorations and things too. Because he was like he made not a prime minister, but a president.
Oh, he was actually made the emperor.
The emperor of Mexico. So he's anyway crazy. And we're talking now about episode 54, Trieste. The actual city of Trieste was really beautiful too. You got the waterfront there and the huge Piazza Unita d'Italia, right?
Yeah.
The central plaza, like with majestic buildings. And the architecture is a bit different. It's a bit Austrian influenced, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they say it's the most multicultural city in Italy.
Yeah.
And you look at the architecture is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
But it's so unique. And I think that the one thing I really enjoyed there too was the food. The food was excellent. There's a restaurant called The Loop.
Yep. You liked that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was my favourite.
And we found a nice little rooftop bar down at the marina, which was worth visiting. And we did the hop-on, hop-off bus, and I'd recommend that as well, because we went right up to the top where there's another church and like a what would you call that? Like a church and like a history museum, almost outdoor history museum.
Yeah.
And yes, that was fascinating. One word of warning, though, Trieste has now become the place where lots of cruise ships are docking, and it can affect some of the bookings and some of the tours that you do, like that happened to us. So it may, just be aware that there'll be lots of people on the days that the ships are there.
Yeah, because what they've done is they've stopped the cruise ships going into Venice.
And so now they're going to
Trieste.
So
Trieste is not very, very far at all from Venice.
No, and as I said, that's episode 54. Next was episode 55 and also 56, and we are talking about Verona.
Yeah.
Yes, and also a day trip that we did to Sirmione and Lake Garda. But let's start with Verona. what a fabulous sort of ancient city this was. It was a bit of a surprise.
Actually, to me, for Verona was one of my favourites, I've got to say. I thought it was fabulous. And it was actually quite contemporary too. Like we...
well, it was ancient and then half a block away, there's they have these modern, local sort of bars, which are fabulous, yeah?
Yeah, we went to one called, and I highly recommend it, La Tradicion.
Yeah,
and we had wine or drinks and bruschetta there, and it was
bruschetta.
Bruschetta, we got a lesson on that in Como, on how to say that. Yeah. But also, we one of the other things that stood out to me, I had the nicest orange juice I've ever had, but it looked like tomato juice. And we had that for breakfast one day, and it was Sicilian orange juice. Yeah, so that was great.
We had an amazing location for our apartment. It was, probably 30 metres from Piazza Bra.
Yeah.
And, of course, Verona, you want to go to Piazza Bra because that's where the arena is, yeah?
Yeah.
It's the arena is smaller. It's like a Colosseum, obviously. Smaller than the Colosseum in Rome, but older.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about what was special about the arena, we actually went and saw an Italian...
Tom Jones,
and he was...
Albano.
I think he's turned 80 since the concert, and his name was Albano.
Yeah.
And we went there, and we had no idea what they were talking about and no idea what they were singing about.
But the light show and the fashion
But it was
parade,
fabulous.
yeah.
And the people that were sitting next to us were the best dressed people I've ever seen in my life. And then when we came out, the whole square was... The
singing.
Restaurants were full, and they all knew the words to the song. So it was a great night. And then I think the other part from
Piazza Bra.
From Piazza Bra, you take a short trip down to Piazza delle Erbe.
Yeah.
And even though it's not that big, it is one of the most impressive piazzas I've ever seen.
Yeah, the statues, the fountains, the shops and restaurants around the outside, the way it's lit up at night, and there's a church tower at one end, and so that's Piazza.
And it's only about a 10-minute, it's only 10 minutes, if that short walk, and it's along Via Masani.
Yeah.
And Lan and I were just blown away. Every high-end shop or brand shop you could possibly think of was in this particular short street.
And also, just at the bottom of the plaza is Juliet's balcony, which is what everyone goes to Verona for.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but...
because they like it long, that's why.
Yeah.
They want to see it.
Obviously, I have no culture.
No, obviously not. Go on.
Well, my other favourite thing there was the view from Piazzale Castel San Pietro, and you can catch a vernacular up there, and the view was absolutely
So you're looking back down over the river, and those beautiful old bridges, and the castles, and the Duomo as well. That's that's impressive to see as well. So that. It's a very old, it's so old, the city, but it just had a modern vibe. I don't know how to explain it, but it was, I really, really enjoyed it. But then we left Verona for a day and went out to
Sirmione.
Yeah, and we did that, because it was recommended. And Lake Garda, which is where Sirmione is located on the lake, is the biggest lake in Italy.
Yep.
And we did a fabulous boat tour that day as well, and went round and saw the castle from behind and the Roman ruins, and the thermal bubbles coming up through the lake, and the mountains, snow-capped mountains in the distance. So that's a highlight, and I'd certainly recommend going and visiting Lake Garda, and going to Sirmione as well. Yeah.
Well, I love Verona, but I would say even if I was hesitant about Verona, I'd still go, because I thought Sirmione and Lake Garda was a highlight.
Sure. And so they're episodes 55 and 56 if you want to know more about either of those places. There's lots of, in those website episodes, if you go to our website, those episodes that you can see all the pictures and all the links to all the tours and everything we've done. So we leave Verona, and we were supposed to be going to Bologna, but we didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, we were off. We were so disappointed. We were going to the F1. We had tickets booked. We were going there for the weekend because Lyle's godson was racing in the Porsche Carrera Super Cup before the F1. And, you know, he's an Aussie, and we were just so excited to be catching up with him and watching that. And the whole thing got cancelled because of severe flooding and people losing their lives in that area of Bologna and where the race was. So we had to do I think it was 2 days before, a last minute change.
Yep.
And we ended up, because it was suited our plans, to go to Milano, yeah. And this is episode 57. So, and did we like Milan? Yeah, we did.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't that keen, but we had a fabulous weekend there, and we stayed, you know, in a nice hotel. Do you remember what that one was?
And NH Collections.
Yeah.
And it was only, I think it was about an €8 cab fare. And the one thing about the railway station has, I think they say it's 300,000 passengers a day. So it is huge.
It's the busiest station, even though technically it's probably not to every station because we travelled the whole place by train.
But in saying that, the signage was great. It's all on one level.
Yeah, and
it is a major transport hub, and
it's pretty busy.
And the taxi ranks were so well organised. We just walked out, basically got a cab, bang, we were at the hotel.
And then we walked to the Duomo, which, you know, like everybody knows when you say Milan, they think of the Milano Duomo, right? Yeah.
Sure.
And it's a bit eclectic. It's got all these spires, and it's got this amazing statue on top. And we tell you all about the history of that, and it's got a special nail inside and all this sort of stuff. We tell you about that in episode 57.
Yeah, and I think the funniest thing about the Piazza Duomo there is the amount of influencers getting photos taken. They're dressed up to the nines, and it's
one lady was feeding doves, you know, and they're sort of landing on her arm, and then they sort of landed all over. It was funny.
Yeah. Now the other place, and you see, which is basically next door, is and I've lost it, the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele Mall.
Second,
yeah, it's a 4-story double arcade, and if you ever see a tourist photo of Milan, generally this is the one you see, and it is absolutely beautiful.
It's the inside of it is the architecture, the decorations, the mosaics on the floor, the old cafes. We actually went to Cafe Biffi. I think it was called.
We did,
and it's the oldest cafe in Milano. So
yeah.
But as I said, we're talking about episode 57. We've got pictures of all those things. But I have to say, there's 2 other things that I really liked about Milan. And one was Sempione Park. It's massive, big green space, and we wandered around there. There's like an Arc de Triomphe at one end. Almost,
the Arch of Peace.
Yep. And I love outdoor spaces, and that was really nice. The cafes and restaurants in that park were amazing.
And I think part of that was too, the weather was actually was beautiful.
Correct.
Like Venice was wet and that sort of stuff, and that's why Leanne bought her booties, wet booties.
And one of the things that really surprised me, and most people don't know this about Milan, is it has canals, something like 50 kilometres of canals.
And they were designed by Leonardo da Vinci.
And they've got their canals with gondolas. So Milan, you definitely need to check it out. Episode 57. Have you got something else?
Yes, one of the things I highly recommend, because we were only there for a weekend, is definitely book the 24-hour hop on, hop off.
Sure.
Bus. I think it was €24 each, but it was fabulous. And
because Milan is a big city, and you can't walk around this one.
Yeah, and so, and the other thing is, a lot of people go to Milan to see
the Last Supper.
The painting of Leonardo da Vinci, the Last Supper.
It's at the Santa Maria delle Grazie.
correct,
Yeah.
make sure
You
you
book.
pre-book, because they only let certain amount of, you're only allowed in there for I think 15 minutes, and you have to have a booking.
We left Milan by train at that busy railway station, and our next stop was Como.
Yeah,
on the lake, on the edge of Lake Como, and that's episode 58 and 59, because we did a day trip into Switzerland that we talk about as well. So
yeah, look, it's only 48.5k from
it's not far.
Milan, so it's only 39 minutes on the train, so it's not far. It's a regionale train. Now,
so you can't book a seat.
So you can't book a seat, and we're going to talk about that later. But it's not far. We stayed in B&B Vista Largo, which was an absolutely beautiful B&B apartment, which breakfast was included, and that was fabulous as well.
Oh, and the views.
On the views of Lake Como, just like, seriously, it was a glorious apartment. And Jonah was our excellent host, so highly recommend there. But the only problem with it is if you haven't got a car, it's quite challenging, because one of the concerns that we had about Como was the lack of taxis.
That's because it's so busy, and the rules are that they can't bring anyone else in to help. So getting around was a little bit challenging. But when you're in Como, what are you going to do? Like, there's the old city, which is worth walking around, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not very big,
no.
and you don't see that many historic buildings, because they're basically being redeveloped into luxury hotels. I think the other thing, obviously, is to do the islands, or which is the ferry service. Now, we found the ferry service absolutely chaotic.
Yeah, we did.
We can't be
positive about that.
But like, it was just crazy. And what happened? And before we went, we did listen to a podcast, and a guy in the podcast, an American guy, said, you must do the private boat tour. And in hindsight, we should have.
Yeah.
And it was about, probably, I don't know, I think it was about $900 to do the private boat tour. But after being there and seeing how the ferries operate, I would definitely do the private tour again.
But let's talk about Lugano, because we did a day trip, and this was episode 58. So we got picked up in the centre of Como, hopped on a bus, drove through over the border into Switzerland, into Lugano, the little town of Lugano, and we and on the beautiful Lake Lugano. Now, we tell you all about that, as I said, in episode 58, but I'm not understating that this was one of our favourite places.
Sure.
It was absolutely superbly stunning.
Yeah, and I think probably because it hosted the first ever Eurovision Song Contest in 1956. No, that's not what it was. There was also the Parco Ciani, which is located right near the city centre. And it was just glorious.
Not so many people.
Yeah, it was. Look, I'd give it a 15 out of 10. It was that.
But you can see all the pictures from that, and also the link to that actual tour in Beach Travel Wine. Go to the podcast episode 58.
And from there, the bus took us back to Italy, and we caught the ferry across to Bellagio.
Yep.
And everybody's heard of Bellagio.
Yeah.
Look, seriously, we had lunch right on the edge of the water.
Yeah.
The lunch was great. I remember the waiter was really, really cool, but it was so busy.
It was busy. But as I said, we tell you about that. But Bellagio is certainly where most people want to go. But when you're in Como, check out the old town, go for a walk around the lake. But one of the other things that we did, because we didn't want to get back on that very busy ferry, was we hopped off at a place called Leno. And I'd certainly recommend that. There's some other little villages closer to Como, so you don't have to be on that ferry for the 2.5 hours jam-packed in. And this is, like, even though we talk about the crowds and everything, you need to go and check out the photos at episode 59, because I think I have to say they're probably the most commented on that I've done. And even one of my friends who looks at all my photos said these are the best you've ever taken in any place you've ever been. And that was at the gardens of the Villa del Babliana. What is it?
Balbianello.
Balbianello, and that's a definite. You'd need to go and see that if you're at Como. See.
Oh, look, that was just glorious, and again, we had lunch there, sitting right on the shoreline, and we're seeing all the private boats pull up.
Yeah.
And I think
Princess Caroline, her villa's there
across the just across the way there. But look, we did find Como probably a little bit too busy for us. But in saying that, as what Leanne said just earlier, the photos that Leanne took. Are just
it is spectacular.
It is spectacular views.
So if you're going, what we're saying is try to get either save your money and do the private boat tour, or go out of the busiest tourist season, because it will just take away from your enjoyment of it a little bit.
And also, even though you cannot, and that's the other thing that we've got to stipulate, you cannot pre-buy the tickets for the ferry, and you can't buy them online.
And we'll tell you all about what happened to us, but basically we lined up to get tickets, and then for the 9 o'clock ferry, and then when we lined up in the line to get on the 9 o'clock ferry, we were told the ferry was full, so then we had to wait another hour and a half or something. So it was just the whole situation. But we do tell you about all the other little villages we visited as well. And one other tip: if you're going to want to go up on the lake somewhere to have lunch, make sure you book the restaurant, especially on weekends. We couldn't find anywhere to eat at one of the little towns because everything had been booked out for quite a while. So, but it was a Sunday, so just remember that. So Como, we left, we did that beautiful day trip, and we headed then, we're a bit excited about this, to episode 61, Cinque Terre.
Yeah? See. The 5-town area, and the towns are...
Here we go.
Monterosso.
Sing.
Vernazza.
Menarola.
Yep. Coniglia.
Yes.
And Rio Maggiore.
Roger Moore. That's it. You got it.
Yeah, so look...
We tell you about the 5 different towns and how to get around, because I had no idea when we went there, and the podcast does spell that out, because because people say, you just hop on the train, or you just hike, or like which town should you stay in. We've explained all of that in episode 61, but Monterosso is where we stayed, and we would definitely recommend that because it's got more beaches, and it's not as steep as the other places.
No, look, Monterosso buys and sells the other places for beaches. Another thing that we did, it's probably more famous for its walks and hikes and that sort of thing. We did do one from Corniglio
from Corniglia to Vernazza.
We did that, and it was actually the thing about that, which really stands out to me, was there was someone playing a radio.
Yeah, on radio. Look, how old are you? Playing music.
Playing music, and it
was wafting up, basically up through
the valley,
and we were walking along. It
was beautiful, and the scenery there is fabulous. And you've got to have a watermelon smoothie. There's a
smoothie. Yeah.
Smoothie.
Halfway along between the walk, there's a little cafe with a like a rustic deck that you can sit at and look down over the views, over the Bougainvillea, over the mountains, down over the little village, down over to the sea. It's
that place is called the Gabbiano Juice Bar.
And you can have a look at, oh, really? Good on you. You can have a look at the pictures that I took on that hike. But we also tell you, and we're not going to go into it now, but you can tell the price, but you can do the train, and you buy a day pass for that, and you can go to each of the villages like a hop-on, hop-off train.
Yep. Highly recommend to do that.
And the other thing was a highlight was there's a ferry ride that you can do. So it actually starts sort of south of Monterosso, and I can't think of the name of that city. That's terrible. But we hop on at Monterosso, and it stops.
Levanto.
There you go, Levanto. And it stops at all the little villages except Corniglia, because Corniglia doesn't have a marina area. And you can hop off at any of those, but it ends up at Porto Venere.
Yep.
And we actually really like Porto Venere. It's not actually part of the Cinque Terre, but I'd recommend, if you're going to go to Cinque Terre, I would check out the prices at Porto Venere. It had much bigger beach area, much bigger harbour area, and it didn't seem quite as busy. And
it had a bunch of bloody super yachts.
Yeah.
It was huge. Now, tickets for the ferry are €39 each.
Got to pay cash.
Yeah, and you must pay cash. We made the mistake. We went down. We got all the info the day before, but no one thought to tell us that they didn't take cards. So
No.
we had anyway. That's a long story, but
we tell you all the information about what you need to know about visiting Cinque Terre. Yeah.
And the other side of it, they also say they don't recommend you book online because
the ferry
because it's really dependent on the weather, so they can cancel it, at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But look, Cinque Terre, like the villages are absolutely beautiful. It's very romantic. We went to a place called the Marina Restaurant, and or at Hotel Marina. Highly recommend. The food was spectacular.
That's in Monterosso.
And that's in Monterosso, yeah.
So, as I said, episode 61, all the information about how to get around, where to stay, and Lars got one more thing.
One more thing, and I've just seen it. The smaller villages expect stairs.
Yes.
And there's limited luxury accommodation. And just be aware that the day trippers basically have left by about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so they all the people coming over from the bigger cities for the day can get quite busy.
Yeah, make sure when you do catch the train between the cities, get the earliest trains you can because
they get jam-packed
jam-packed.
Next up are episodes 62, 63, 64. This city was so good we had to do 3 podcasts. And it is Firenze.
Yeah, Florence.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Well, let's just stick to some of the highlights because we've got 3 podcasts where people can go and find out, about, the way we got around and some of the sites. But I would like to start with the one of the things that astounded me when we first got there and we went for a walk and we came across the Duomo. And it sort of as I say in the podcast, it sort of smacks you in the mouth or in the face. It's so massive and it's so beautiful and it's unlike any other church you'll see really in Italy because it's got this marble facade. And we tell you, as I said, we tell you all about it in the episodes. But I'm not just sitting, and this is what you need to do. You just need to go and find a cafe, and don't worry, you're going to pay a bit more, but who cares? And if it's morning, go and have a coffee. If it's, if you feel comfortable, go and have a spritz. But just sit and admire this building.
The Duomo Santa Maria del Fiore is the name of the church.
Yeah.
And it's dedicated to the Virgin of Flowers. Like what Leanne's saying is it totally blows you away.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's one of my favourite things in Florence. And you can't miss that.
And one of my favourites is it's the Arno River is Florence is on, and when we first went for a walk we actually got lost, but we ended up at the Arno River, and from where we were we could see the Ponte Vecchio, which is the oldest bridge, and that's the bridge with all the jewelry shops and all that sort of thing. It's extremely busy. But just off that to the left-hand side, there was the Uffizi courtyard, which is the museum. And now that's got about, I think it's 48 statues, and they say of the Italian geniuses.
And these are just all out. You don't, you're not paying anything. You're just out in the plaza.
Like, it's just unbelievable. And then that leads to
the piazza. I can't think of the name of it.
Hang on. The Piazza della Signoria.
Okay. And you liked that because it had...
That was my favourite. It was huge, but the amount of statues, the
replica of David's there?
Yeah. You've got the Fountain of Neptune. Actually, in a funny story there, the Pope at the time was a little bit surprised with Neptune's... what would we call manliness, and he was told, the artist was told to reduce that. But it's got the Palazzo Vecchio, which was the original palace for the Medici family. It's mind blowing. And the other thing about what I really took from Florence was how the legacy that the Medici family left in relation to the Renaissance art and sculptures. It was just brilliant.
Of course, you've got the inside the Uffizi Gallery, and you've got the Accademia where Michelangelo's David is. But one of my other favourite things we did was the and we've got links to these in the episodes. The Oltrarno food tour.
Sunset Florence food and wine tour with Lorenzo.
Yeah, and we did 4 or 5 stops, and we had some beautiful food and wine at each place, and we visited one of Florence's famous wine windows, which was a highlight for me. Doing that wine tour, even if you don't want to do a food tour, you don't want to do this one, I'd certainly recommend a food tour in Florence, because you just go to these local little places and you find out all the history of the Chianti wines and things. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, look, I think one of the things that we would recommend is make sure, look, the tours are not cheap.
No.
There's no question they're not cheap. However, we did one for the Duomo inside. We did one for the Uffizi Gallery. We did one for the Pitti Palace.
Yep.
We did one for the
Accademia,
which is where
David is.
And then and all through all these places, you've got all these names of the artists: Sandro Botticelli, Caravaggio, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Benito Cellini, Filippo Brunelleschi. It's unbelievably beautiful. And so make sure you book a tour. Make sure you get a skip the line, which if you get a tour, you'll get a skip the line, and book online.
Yes. And another little hint for tours is we booked, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. They were my hints at the end, but seeing you brought it up now, I'll chuck it in here. We often book the Airbnb experience tours, and that was the Oltrarno one. So they're not as expensive. They generally have more availability, so you can book them when you arrive, and you're generally dealing with an absolute local.
Yeah.
And it's not a big company, right? And
Sure.
I found that really good. But before we move on, as I said, we've got episodes 62, 63, 64. I want to talk about a couple of things. Yes, and Lyle's just given me the hand signal of a gun, because when we arrived in Florence, no, we didn't. One of the funniest stories, and I'll just tell it very, very quickly. But actually, I won't tell you the whole story, but because you can go and listen to it because it's hilarious. But it's a translation that went wrong, and it involved a sniper. That's all I'm going to say. So it was quite funny. And one other highlight before we move on from Florence is, Lyle, you ready? The Joshua Tree Pub.
Oh, of course.
It was our local little pub at the end of our street, and the first night we met Jasmine there, the barmaid, and we went back. It was a very rustic little pub. They had the best cold beer in town, and we also found out about a game called Calcio Storico. Remember that?
Sure.
And we tell you, oh my gosh, it is the most violent, weird, historic, patriotic game you'll ever. It's only played ever in Florence. It's it's crazy, and we tell you all about that as well in the episode. So Florence, episode 62, 63, 64. Go to beachtravelwine.com, the podcast page, and find those episodes, and check out the links to the tours we did and all the pictures that I took. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you enjoyed that, didn't you?
Oh, I love Florence. I reckon, I think it was my favourite. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Would go back in a heartbeat. Let's break up all this history with some fun, and I'm talking episode 60, where we went to Tuscany. Yeah, did you love it?
Yeah, I'm what is it, lost for words on how beautiful Tuscany is. We stayed at a place called Castello Vecchio Maggio, and it was seriously, you got no idea how beautiful it is. Come on, you do the description.
Well, let's say
tell us how
Castello is obviously a castle, right?
See.
Yeah, and I was telling someone the story about this place the other day, and I say this, I know, but go and check out the photos. Look, you arrive through these rolling hills, and you pull up to this castle, and all you can see are the rolling hills with the grapevines and the buildings with the terracotta roofs. And then we go into our apartment, which I thought was a hotel room, which was this massive
hotel. You thought it was a hallway?
Yeah, it was a hallway, but it was actually part of our room. You know, it had a lounge room and a kitchen and a massive bedroom and this beautiful antique furniture, and you know, the big wooden windows looking over the vineyards. And if that wasn't enough, just down below the castle was the most beautiful infinity pool you could imagine. So you're in the infinity pool and you're looking just it was the most amazing place. And as I said, check out episode 60. It's got all the pictures. And then we did a really nice 5-course degustation meal that they only do once a week for their guests, paired with the wines. You know, like there was another Aussie couple there from Jindabyne.
Yeah.
They'd been before, and they just, you know, they were riding a motorbike around. They wanted to come back and do that. It was magical, wasn't it?
I think Tuscany, you know, everybody tells you how beautiful Tuscany is. Everybody you talk to that's been there, they all rave about it. So you've got really, really high expectations when you get there. And I've got to tell you, you will not be disappointed. And we were only there for a weekend. If I would recommend, if you're game enough to drive in Italy, and I think in Tuscany the roads are not anywhere near as busy, so they're more like country roads. Highly recommend it to, you know, all the wine regions, the Chianti, and I think it's Chianti.
It is Chianti.
Chianti, yeah.
It's spelt with a CH.
And
Chianti, Lo siento.
the wine, seriously, as good as you'll taste. So yeah, Tuscany, Florence, and it's only, I think it was like a 40-minute drive from Florence to Tuscany, and I think it cost €120, but it was well worth it.
So go and have a look. Episode 60, where you can see you get the link to Vecchio Maggio. You can see the photos of where we stayed, and the infinity pool, and me in the infinity pool, and Lyle in the infinity pool, and me in the infinity pool, and Lyle in the infinity pool. Just goes. Oh, look! And then we did like a wine cellar tour. So that was absolutely magical, and I definitely want to go back to Tuscany. Like, I just really would love to go back there. All right, enough of the reminiscing about that beautiful place. We then had to move on to another favourite.
Shithole.
And this one we've done 4 episodes, but one of them was on the Vatican. So this one's obviously about Rome. So episode 65 is all about visiting the Vatican museums, the Sistine Chapel, St. Paul's Basilica, and the tour we did, and all the recommendations with that. And to say you'll be blown away by that is an understatement. So, and then episode 66, 67, 68 is all the other stuff that we did in Rome. And we broke them into ancient Rome, romantic Rome at night. So we had a few different themes going through that. But let's just say a couple of highlights, right? Because everyone knows there's so much to see in Rome. We could go on and on, but we've done that in 4 podcasts. So there's a couple of things. For me, what stands out is I loved the Colosseum. I had never watched the Gladiator movie. I really had no idea what went on there. I have now. But I just found the stories, and our guide that we had, Diego, and the tour we did, there's a link to that in the podcast episode. But oh man, that was fascinating to me, and he brought it to life and what it would have been like. And yeah, I really loved that Colosseum tour.
Yeah, well, and the part of that Colosseum tour was the Roman Forum, and that is, like, for me, that was a highlight, because you can't do the Roman Forum without sort of delving into the life of Caesar, and that is so fascinating.
Oh yeah, the talking of bringing the treasures back, the elephants and the giraffes walking up.
Yeah, and all the gold, and all the slaves, and all the rest of it. And as you said, Diego, he did such a fabulous job to put us there.
Yeah.
That was really good. But I'm surprised that you're saying that was your favourite. I would have thought the Borghese Gardens.
Would you?
Oh, because you like a garden.
I do.
I don't think I've ever seen a bigger garden in my life.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Well, and also the views from the Borghese Gardens, and we tell you about that obviously in the podcast because it's not really on the tourist map, but it's it's one end of the main road, Via di Corso, is it that? Yeah, the
Yeah,
main
that's
road
it.
there,
Yep,
and
yep.
one end is the Plaza Popolo,
Yeah.
and that's where the Borghese Gardens is, and yeah, so you're up high on the highest part of Rome,
Yep.
and you can see probably 90% of the 1,000 church domes that they've got around the city.
But you've also got, and then at the other end of the Borghese Gardens, you've got the most unbelievable street called the Via Vittorio Veneto.
Yeah, that's like a movie set, isn't it?
It's
Unbelievable.
Well,
they've got the movie stars used to go there and actually film movies there, like the Sweet Life, La Dolce Vita, is it?
That's
Vita?
correct.
Yeah. So they're definitely highlights. But there's a couple of other things for me, and one was the Moonlight Walk. Once again, it was an Airbnb experience that we did called the Moonlight Walk of Ancient Rome, I think it was called, Treasures of Rome, but it started in Piazza Navona, and Piazza Navona for me, I think was the nicest plaza. We were there just at sort of the end of the day, so the light was nice. It's got 3 massive fountains, and we tell you, as I said, all about those, but the one in the middle, the Statue of the 4 Rivers or something, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right outside that basilica.
That's right, yep.
Wow, like the colours and the buildings and the huge fountain. It's go and check out the pictures. It's
and part
stunning.
of that tour is the Pantheon, and that's the oldest building in Rome. And then you've got Piazza Venezia, Piazza Venezia. And then you've got the monument El Vittorio Emanuele II, which was basically, that was all built by Mussolini. And the locals don't like it.
No.
They reckon it looks like a wedding cake or a typewriter.
Was that a highlight though for you?
I actually, when we walked around the corner and we first looked at it, it was wow. It was wow. But I think part of the reason why they don't like it is because it's right at, it took some of the Capitol Hill, which was part of the Forum, away, and the locals, anyway, and Mussolini's not that popular.
Okay.
But look, Rome, seriously, it's
an amazing city.
It's up there with Florence, and it's up there with Tuscany, but different. Absolutely different.
And of course, like as I said, my highlight was the Colosseum and the Borghese Gardens, and obviously, we did the Trevi Fountain thing and the Spanish Stairs. But just remember, don't sit on the Spanish Stairs; it's prohibited, and you can get fined. And Piazza Navona. But another highlight was the Highlander Bar.
Oh yeah.
Once again, we found a local little bar. It was underground. I'm like, this could be a bit dodgy, but it was fabulous, and I can't remember the bartender's name.
Oh, you can say, you liar. Angelo, if you listen to this, my wife's still in love. He was the best looking dude I've ever seen. He was so friendly, perfect English.
We tell you all about the Highlander Bar because it's worth going to, if you they're just open every day from I think 11 a.m. till some ungodly hour.
We actually watched every about 5 o'clock each day because we went every day. That's how good it was. And we'd watch. They had the Australian English Test cricket on when we were there, and we go down about 5 o'clock, watch a couple of hours of that or the last session, and then off we go to dinner. The food in Rome was spectacular. In fact, this is going to sound weird. We had one of the best Chinese meals we've ever had.
Anyway, if you want to know more about any of these places, the link to the Highlander Bar, I've just seen some pictures today on Instagram where everybody was partying for the AFL Grand Final. So there's a whole lot of Aussies down there. So
really?
So whatever sport you want to watch, they have it. So episode 65, 66, 67, 68, Beach Travel Wine podcast. Go to the webpage and you'll find the pictures and all the links to all those tours and places we're talking about. So we've just talked about our 7 weeks, in Rome, all the places we visited and some highlights and some things
that we did by ourselves.
Now, the last sort of 4 episodes of our Italian series, episode 69, 70, 71, 72, all about a group tour that we did with Intrepid Travel, and the tour was called Rome to Amalfi. And yeah, so we tell you all about those. So the first one, 69, was about Naples. And look, we tell you all about the tour, in these episodes, and, who was on it, what we did, and, all the cost and all that sort of stuff. But just to give you a rundown, episode 69 was on Naples. And I loved Naples for its Spanish Quarter, and walking through the streets and eating pizza, because that's where pizza was invented. Is that the word?
Neapolitan pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the waterfront there, that was it's a bit gritty, grimy, the city, a bit edgy, but it's
my favourite part was the toilet paper.
Yeah, that's it. So check out episode 69. There's lots of photos. There was this big the Napoli football team had just won the championship football, and the whole town was basically awash in blue and white and football memorabilia, and Maradona was everywhere because he used to play for them, years ago. It was a big deal, and it was just crazy photos. So that's episode 69. Episode 70 was when we went to Pompeii and Vesuvius, and wow, we had no idea about the extent, how big and how extensive Pompeii was, the ruins, this city that had been covered for 2,000 years. It was impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think if you just be aware, make sure, if you're going to do the Pompeii, if you get the chance to do it, it is fabulous. It's fascinating. It's interesting. But do Mount Vesuvius as well. It is a package deal, I would suggest. And actually, the modern city of Pompeii,
it was fabulous. It was beautiful.
Really, really nice.
Really modern.
Yeah, it had a great vibe to it.
But Vesuvius is right there on the edge of Pompeii. So as you're walking around the archaeological site, the dominating feature is, the volcano in the background, isn't it?
Sure. They say that there's 3 million people still. If the volcano went off, there's still 3 million people that would be affected. So
we in that episode, we tell you about episode 70. There's, as I said, I've got photos of Pompeii. There's some risque, some rude bits in there. Check out the pictures, like crazy sort of artwork on brothel walls and all that sort of stuff. But we also tell you about, the hike that we did around the rim of the volcano, and it was fabulous. So that's episode 70. Episode 71, we head to Sorrento, and
absolutely beautiful. Sorrento, because we're down there, we're really on the southern side, the south of Italy. It's a lot different than the northern part, and it is just
what's everything you think? You think, coastal,
glorious.
Yeah.
And then we did a day tour to the Isle of Capri.
We did.
I'm up there with one of my favourite things out of the whole 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And the girls were they were singing. They were just singing.
Oh, and if you go to episode 71, you will hear me singing.
Yes, and I was a backup singer.
You were a backup singer, and even Sorrento. And, all these things we're talking about were all organised for us because we're on this, intrepid travel with our friends. It was fabulous. Lyle even learned how to make gelato.
I did.
Gelato making class. We tell you about the most popular gelato place in Sorrento, and then the most romantic restaurant. You can't believe it. Walking through, it's in a lemon orchard with fairy lights all through. It was amazing. So that's episode 61, Sorrento. And then we head to the last stop, which was Amalfi, and this is episode 72. And Paradise Lost hike was probably one of my favourite things. Like, you think about the coast, the Amalfi coast is all beach, but this is a waterfall, sort of a secret hike up through the hills past, I don't know, like how many waterfalls you go past. There's Roman ruins that you walk through.
Yeah, you've got the iron mills and the paper mills.
Moss-covered walls. So that, check out the pictures with that.
I think my favourite part of Amalfi was dancing in the Duomo, Piazza Duomo.
Duomo, yes.
And dancing the salsa with my gorgeous Miss World, Leonita.
And that's the thing about where we stayed in Amalfi. We stayed in Hotel Fontana, and honestly, that was amazing because it was right there in that piazza. Yeah. And out our window was the Cathedral of St. Andrew. And we happened to be there on a special time when it was the the festival of St. Andrew, and we got woken up by cannon fire, and there was this mad procession, and like it just so much stuff. And then we also did a ferry ride to Positano.
And the ferry was modern. Look, and it was only about a 30-minute trip, and I bought my most favourite shirt.
Yeah. There's a lot of lemons in this area. So, so that's episode 72. So we tell you about, what to do in Amalfi, that, as I said, that hike we did, about the cathedral, about a trip to Positano, and that crazy, religious day that went on. That was incredible, right?
Yeah. Can I just add that Positano is, what I said to Leanne was, it's definitely the Paris end.
Oh, it's very glamorous.
Amalfi.
Yes. All right. So that's our sort of 20 Italian episodes in a heartbeat. But what you can do, though, is go to beachtravelwine.com/Italy, and all the episodes are there, the ones we've talked about today. And you click on any of those to, like they do have the podcast episodes there. You can play straight from either your phone or, as you know, from your podcast player, but you can share it with people, that are going to Italy. And all the photos are there. That's the thing. And there's interactive maps. So all these places we've talked about, they're all on the map. The links to the tours, the accommodation, all the stuff is there. So everything you want to know, we've done in all those 20 pages that we've got on our website. All right. So before we finish, I think it's always good to, as I said, people are always asking us questions, but there's a few things that we learnt about traveling in Italy that I think is worth mentioning here. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
No.
All right. Italy is expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
So if you, like us, going to be there for that long, you're going to be eating out a lot. You need to find some ways to bring those costs down. And, we often found little supermarkets where we could buy sandwiches, and we had breakfast at home, that sort of stuff. But it is expensive. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, you will need some cash. We needed more cash. We traveled around Spain for months and only used cash once. We could use card anywhere. Italy, the restaurants you'll go to and they'll say, oh, my machine's broken, or we only take cash, or, don't they? Some taxis, some not. But so be prepared. And all the tourist tax has to be paid in cash.
Yep.
And
that's for the accommodation.
That's for wherever you stay. That's right. And that's you can pay your accommodation with card, but they want cash for that. So take some euros with you, or have access to be able to get euros. Yeah.
Yep.
Look, everyone talks about pickpockets. We didn't have any issues. Nobody that we actually knew had issues, but I know people do. But you just be aware in crowds.
Yeah, just be careful.
Just be careful.
But apart from that, to walk around Rome or any of the bigger cities, very, very safe, and all of them are very walkable.
Yeah. Now, we did say the tours can be expensive. We feel like they're worth the price, because every tour guide that we had, we learnt so much, and you wouldn't get that on your own. But if you are on a budget, you can get into some. So, for instance, say the Pitti Palace, I think it's about €15 to get into. I think we paid about $300 for that tour.
Yeah, look, all the churches in Italy are free.
Yeah,
but you've got to line up.
Yeah,
so you could do it a lot cheaper.
Yes.
You can do it a lot cheaper. And the other side of it too, we did a lot of the tours remembering we're doing podcasts.
Yes.
So we're after as much sort of information as we can.
But also those Airbnb experiences, try those out.
Yeah, they were
a lot cheaper.
We've done them in Spain as well, and every time we've done it, it's been perfect.
Now, there is a lot of walking, a lot of steps, a lot of cobblestone streets. There's no avoiding that at all. So, people, there's all this talk online about what to wear. Just wear comfortable clothes and shoes. Like it's not a fashion parade. You're going to need comfortable shoes. And talking about what to wear, you will need to cover shoulders and knees. We had a couple of times where, with somebody and they didn't have their shoulders covered, they couldn't get in, or, a lot of the churches give you things to cover up now. But just be respectful. It's their culture, their tradition, and that's what they ask you to do. Another thing was we didn't book a lot of restaurants because we didn't need to, but we always went early. I think we were always hungry because we didn't have big lunches.
We walked a long way.
But if you go early, you don't need a booking because you get in before the busy time. And we never got turned away from a restaurant, only in Como. or Treno, that fancy restaurant they wouldn't let us in.
Oh, yeah. That might maybe because of the way we were dressed. No.
You will pay for water. They'll say, do you want water? And you say yes. But, you can ask for tap water and then you won't pay. But I always bought nice cold water. So, and don't worry if you don't have something. You don't have to take everything. If you think, oh, my God, it's going to rain, I might need a raincoat, I might need an umbrella, you'll be surprised. You'll be walking along, like we were walking over the bridge in Rome, it starts to rain, and as if by magic, people appear selling umbrellas, raincoats, like my boots in Venice, and the same for the sun. It's hot, you're walking somewhere, do you need a hat? Do you need sunscreen? Do you need cold water? Like you honestly, it doesn't matter if you leave it behind you, they're going to come and try and sell you stuff, umbrellas, to keep the sun off and everything. Yes?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about the same thing too. As far as clothes that you're going to need. Now, we were there in in Venice, it was cooler. Then by the time we got to bloody Florence, it was hot. Now, I took one suitcase and I probably only wore half the clothes.
Yeah,
but that's mainly because we had booked into apartments.
Yeah, some apartments. Yeah,
so it does make a difference.
Yeah, but we always washed our stuff. You don't need a lot of clothes. Now the trains, as we've mentioned before, if you can book a train where you can book your own seat, do it. Otherwise, you're going to end up standing up with your suitcase trying to find somewhere, to sit. They get very busy. And even if you do have a seat booked, don't arrive late. Get there early because there's not room for everybody to put their suitcases. So, you want to be on there early and find somewhere to do that.
You can. One of the tricks that we did see is you on
the fast trains.
Yeah, you can slide your case in between the seats.
Two seats, but there's only room for one. So once again, if you're on there first, you can do that, and be patient. There is crowds, there is waiting, there is lining up. And you just need to be patient and be prepared for that. And
be prepared to say buongiorno when you walk into any of the.
Just be pleasant.
Yeah,
shops.
And because the only reason I know this is because we watched a travel show, and if you don't say buongiorno, they think you're being rude. So we, walk in with a smile on your face, be happy, and the service was great.
And one more tip before we finish off: if you're going to some of these major places like the Vatican, the Uffizi Gallery, then don't take a backpack because they won't let you take it in. And you have to put it in a locker. And quite often where you finish your tour is nowhere near where you started. So,
that's a good call.
Yeah, so a few people left umbrellas behind and all sorts of things because they just won't let you take it. Yeah, so just take the basics of what you need, or just check the rules because everything is written there for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that probably really surprised me, and this is probably along the historical thing, is that Italy has only been a united country for 162 years.
It's a crazy thing.
So, and I think what that the consequences of that are, each region is very, very parochial. Whether it be Florence has got the best food or
the best steak,
or the best steak,
Naples has got the pizza.
They've all got
Rome's
their
got
own
the pasta.
Yeah, they've all got their own idiosyncrasies, and But look, I just didn't get it. You think to yourself, well, back in Rome, they were all Italians. Well, no, they weren't because Italy hadn't been established there. So look,
before we finish, let's we're nearly done. I think Lyle and I would both say the places we would love to go back to would be Tuscany, Rome, and Venice.
Oh, absolutely, no question.
We feel like we've been to those beautiful coastal places. We probably don't need to go back there, but certainly worth seeing Cinque Terre and the Amalfi Coast.
Oh, absolutely, beautiful.
And also we'd like to, if these people listening, they've got to the end, just give a shout out to our friends that we met on the way. And that would be Tracy and Perry, the first people we met in Venice. They were sitting outside having a wine and they became friends of ours since then. Jackie and Sean, we met them in Florence and then we met them again in Rome, and we've been in contact with them since. They were great fun. And of course the people on our tour, Luca the guide, Mandy and Christy, Lynn and Cassia, and of course we can't forget Wayne and Anne.
Well, you can.
Yeah. It just, that, you know, meeting people is one of the best things about traveling, you know.
Yeah.
And anyone.
Oh, and don't forget Angela.
Well, I've got Angela and Jasmine, you know, our favourite bar people from our trip. So,
sure.
So there's our summary of our 20 podcasts that we've done on our Italian series. Now we are off. Don't you give this away. Next time we are off to what we think is the most beautiful country or city we've ever been to. It's exciting. There's amazing food. There's spectacular wine. It's like the adventure capital of maybe the world. It's where bungee jumping was invented. So I'll leave that with you until we see you in our next episode. It's sadly goodbye from Italy from me.
And look, I'll just finish. Can I just finish by saying, Leanne and I were sitting in the Rome airport on our way to go home, and I actually said to Leanne, I could do another 8 weeks right now.
Because you loved it.
I loved it. So, yeah, and it's arrivederci from me.